Let's begin.
Burn, ungodly filth!
What do you want? To make you ours or to make you despair?
Spirit Blade Productions presents...
Do you have any idea how much I will make you suffer? The horrific agony that I will inflict.
Spirit Blade, Dark Ritual.
Hell will be a refuge for you when I'm finished. For more information, visit spiritblade.com.
christiangeekcentral.com. Hold still! You lied to me!
In my face! In the face!
Put it in the peanut butter.
In my face! I thought you said this guy was a Christian. What is this?
Liberate tu teme.
Hey, Paeter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions, here to present my... I don't even know what I want to call this. The top 5 most noteworthy... Are these all trailers? They are. They're all trailers. Trailers from San Diego ComicCon 2018. I was going to do a top 10 list, but I was just like, that's too easy. There wasn't just a ton of stuff that was really grabbing my attention and getting me excited, and so I was like, and I was also a little short on time, so I was like, let's narrow this down to 5, and that was a little more, that was actually a lot more tough. There are things that didn't make my list here that maybe are on yours, and I'd love to hear you share those in the comments, but let's get down to, from 5 down to 1, the top 5 most noteworthy trailers. I say noteworthy because I'm not necessarily excited about all these things, but I at the very least find them very interesting. Crap. All right, let's get started.
Number 5. Boom! Mother trucker!
DC is doing this, like, DC Universe product that people can subscribe to, like Netflix. Everyone's doing their own Netflix these days, and you can get access to a bunch of comic books and a bunch of animated TV shows and animated movies and live-action movies, all of these things, of course, with DC characters, and an exclusive to this DC Universe streaming service is Titans, which is about the Teen Titans, and you can, just watching the trailer, you can tell, okay, this is, if it's not about the Teen Titans, then it's about definitely the young 20-something Titans at most. And they're obviously going for a much darker vibe here. There's more blood, there's more violence, there's an F-bomb, and, I like dark superhero fiction. That typically is what I'm drawn to. Maybe more specifically, I'm drawn to serious superhero fiction, which these days, usually, if something is going to have an absence of jokes in a superhero movie, it's also going to be very dark and grim. I don't necessarily, I guess, want something that's dark and grim. I do oftentimes like that because I feel like dark and heavy circumstances highlight the nature of evil and build in me as a viewer a desire for justice, a desire for these wrong things to be made right, and so it makes those moments of heroism so much more impactful to me as I'm taking in superhero fiction. So, but in this case, I'm like, I don't know, I'm still getting a whole lot of CW vibes off of this trailer, and I'm wondering if the darkness and the F-bomb and the violence and the blood and stuff is just going to be in there to be edgy for the sake of being edgy, rather than really trying to tell a powerful story, being edgy and being dark, and, well, let me put it this way, creating content that is for mature audiences only doesn't necessarily make that content mature. And I guess that's what I'd really like, is something that in a more mature and sophisticated way, a more I guess, world-savvy way, or I don't even know what the word I'm looking for. Just something that has a wiser perspective on life. I know I'm asking a lot from Hollywood right now. But I would like something that wrestles, superhero fiction wrestles with those themes of good and evil, or at least it has the foundation for it so readily there, that I would really prefer that they handle those topics with more philosophical maturity is maybe what I'm asking for. I'm not sure. But anyway, I'll just be very curious to see what this thing is. I like what I'm seeing visually. I like what they seem to be aiming for in terms of like the darkness and the seriousness and some of the weight. But I'm just looking at... It just has that CW vibe I can't quite put my finger on. Maybe it has something to do with how they do the hair and makeup for these, pretty boys and pretty girls. Maybe it has something to do with their performance styles. I don't know what it is, but there's a CW-ness about this that I think will probably be a big turnoff, despite them aiming, it seems like, for some things that I might really connect with. I don't know. It all comes down to really what what they do with the script. I like stylistically a lot of what I'm seeing, but I'm just gonna wait and see what other people say about this. If anybody actually gets that subscription service, I'm sure a bunch of people will. Anyway, all right, moving on.
Number 4.
Now, from what I understand, a lot of people have dropped off from The Walking Dead. I'm not one of those people. We stopped getting cable a number of years ago, but I have been faithfully either buying the Blu-ray seasons as they come out, or buying one episode at a time, each episode of the series of The Walking Dead on Amazon. And I've really remained interested in the stories that they're telling. And I think especially once Negan was introduced, they kind of like derailed it from the pattern they had been in for a couple of years, of like finding a place where, oh, maybe this is where we can settle down, and then all the crap hits the fan, and then they wander for a while, and then they find another place, oh, maybe this is the place we can settle down. I feel like they went through 3 or 4 places maybe even that they thought this maybe will be the place they can settle down and have a life in. And they broke that cycle with Negan. They settled down in a place, and they still had to deal with stuff, so they weren't wandering anymore. They were leaning more, into other human beings as the greatest enemy, which they had started doing prior to that, but with the introduction of Negan, they really leaned into that a lot. And I made a video about Negan when he was initially introduced, because he was introduced in such a heavy and intense way. I mean, I just was asking myself, how will we as viewers ever feel like justice is served against this villain, Negan, without it going to some places that it really shouldn't? I mean, I've been wondering to myself, how are they gonna do this? What do they think is gonna be some kind of catharsis for viewers at the end of Negan's story? And we still don't know. There was a moment last season where they certainly could have done that, closed that plot line and taken Negan out of the plot and dealt with him and, killed him or whatever. They didn't do that. They did something different, which I find very interesting. And the trailer for Season 9, can you believe it? We are on Season 9, my gosh. The trailer for Season 9 looks like like a whole bunch is going to be changing about the status quo, about it looks like Maggie's going to be coming to the forefront a whole lot more, and it's been confirmed that Andrew Lincoln, who plays kind of that main dad, I can't remember his name now. Gosh, what does that say? But it looks like this is going to be his last season, which does that mean, what they're reading between the lines, it's the last season of all for Walking Dead? Maybe not. I don't know. I think his arc has to be about done, because we only have Judith really in his life now, and she hasn't been fleshed out enough for his role as a father to really play as strongly as it did, or his role as a husband when his wife and son were still in the story. So I think that like his arc is kind of played out at this point. But I don't know, what I'd like to see them do is, yes, change things up like they're doing, but then either end it or really make some big changes that will just change the nature of the show altogether. Like I was reading somewhere that Fear the Walking Dead, that kind of spin-off series, has gone through some major changes to the point where like now it's almost kind of, they fast-forwarded to catch up to the timeline of the main Walking Dead series, and in some ways it's being compared to a Western now. I'm like, what in the world? They must have been doing some crazy stuff over there. I feel like for the main Walking Dead series to continue to have like 2 more seasons after this season is when they're really going to have to almost kind of remake the show and redefine what this show is, which I think they've arguably started to do, but I think they really need to just, boom, make that light year jump ahead to a totally different animal. That, or have these status quo changes that are obviously coming lead to the end game at the end of this season, which I would be fine with too. Either way, The Walking Dead, like I was saying with superhero stories, is fertile ground for dealing with these deep moral issues, dealing with issues of like a naturalistic philosophy that would have to logically say that basically we just should do everything we can to experience pleasure and to survive, and that's really what we ought to be driven to do. But that comes into conflict. There are some people that take that view in The Walking Dead, where they'll be like, no, we've got whatever it takes to survive. We got to keep going there, And that's a very kind of short-sighted naturalistic view, whereas if we believe that there is life after this and that we are answerable to our Creator, then we would rightly make choices that could lead to our deaths, but are morally better than the choices that we would make possibly in order to survive. And so I can almost always count on having at least a little nugget of something interesting to think about in The Walking Dead, as well as at least every few episodes have something that hits home, that connects with me emotionally. So it still continues to very much be my cup of tea, and I'm really looking forward to what's going to happen in season 9.
Number 3.
Godzilla, King of Monsters. I reviewed the last Godzilla movie that came out a few years ago. I can't remember what I thought of it. I think I was somewhat indifferent. I don't remember hating it. But either way, I'm very surprised that I am looking forward to this movie. The trailer, if you haven't seen it, check it out so you can hear the music and some of the dialogue and stuff. They're going for this very kind of emotionally, kind of like a somber or sad kind of feel to it. They're also playing up the majestic awe and beauty of these massive creatures. There's going to be multiple giant building skyscraper-sized monsters in this movie that I assume Godzilla's going to be fighting, at least some of them. But the way that they portray them in this trailer and the music they chose was really striking to me. Also, I noticed that there were at least two, maybe as many as 3 or 4 actors that I saw in the trailer that are usually, I'm used to seeing them in movies that are more about actors and actors' performances, smaller dramas, or, these are character actors or heavy drama actors that I'm seeing in this movie, and I'm like, wow, that's really interesting choices. So I'm wondering, with all these little things that I'm seeing and hearing in this trailer, if they're really going for something that will be able to connect with those of us who like emotional storytelling, or storytelling that affects us emotionally, in a human drama kind of sense. I think there's some evidence of that. There seems to be some mother-daughter drama going on in the trailer, and the monsters look cool. You know what I appreciate in this trailer is they do a lot of hiding of those monsters. A lot of times they're only seen in the haze of clouds at night when there's a lightning strike, and you just briefly see, the giant silhouette of the creature, or a giant creature frozen in ice. You can only make out their basic silhouette. So I love it when they hide the monster, because I'm cursed with an eye that picks out CG. And also I love that sense of exploring the unknown. Like, what is that? Did I just see what I think I saw? And so the more they can play up that and slowly, progressively reveal the monsters over the course of the movie, I think the more satisfying it's going to be for me. So anyway, really surprised to be looking forward to Godzilla, King of Monsters.
Number 2.
I did not like the Justice League movie. As you may know, if you saw or heard my review, it seemed to be a overreaction, like a reckless hard turn away from darkness into jokes for joke's sake, and at the expense of plot and character development. And oh man, I had a hard time with the Justice League movie, and sadly there's confirmation from Warner Brothers that they have no plans to release a Zack Snyder cut, so oh well. But I'm not opposed to Warner Brothers doing what they need to do to help these films be successful, even if that means making them lighter. And I think that we're definitely going to be seeing that in SHAZAM. This movie, I enjoy the character, but usually more often, somewhat like Batman, I enjoy him most when he's played against other superhero characters. So it'll be interesting to see just what I think of Shazam, or as I really, really want to call him, Captain Marvel, because he had the name first, and I think it was just some legal stupid thing that allowed Marvel Comics to take that away. But now, for the last few years, they've renamed the guy Shazam, but he's always going to be Captain Marvel to me. Come on. But what's interesting to me is the casting. Billy Batson, who turns into Captain Marvel when he says Shazam, he's almost kind of preteen or young teenager, and I can't remember the guy that's the other kid that's next to him that like uses crutches. In the comics, they're not the same age. That kid, the kid with the disability, is a little bit older, and Billy Batson is much younger, and I'm thinking long-term for a franchise, they would have wanted to cast a younger character. I mean, like, if they do a trilogy with this actor, then by the end, he's going to be looking almost as much like an adult as the Shazam character that he turns into, you know? So that's, I don't know, that's kind of weird, unless they decide they're going to go in a Mark Waid Kingdom Come direction, which would be really weird. And I think that story's too heavy and dark for DC now. But anyway, I think it's an interesting update of the character, the style of humor. It's just got more of kind of a modern kind of sensibility to it that I can't quite put my finger on. The inconsistency in the power set is a little interesting to me. He falls down and hurt and feels like, oh, he gets the wind knocked out of him and he feels in pain after falling, but yet bullets are bouncing off of him, so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they explain what his powers and limitations are. I'm really, really curious. That's why this one's so high on my list, is because I think there's so much potential for me to really enjoy this, but there's also a lot of potential for me to just be like, no, not what I wanted. And I think what's going to make the difference is whether or not there's heart to this story. And it's so hard to tell in these trailers, because I think right now they're feeling like, we got to let people know that we can be funny like Marvel too, so put jokes in there. You know, I still feel like DC is like overcorrecting, at least in their marketing right now. It's going to be hard to say. When I see the movie, that's when I'll know. But I want it to have heart. That's what'll make the difference to me. You know, we're dealing with a boy who is orphaned and is living with foster parents, and those are like some heavy things. So he's, you know, going to be without a feeling of belonging, without a, you know, I can't imagine growing up without having parents, you know, like parents that were consistent and with me, you know. There's so much room. There's so much room for them to do some really neat things there in the midst of all the explosions and the jokes and stuff. We can have all that, and I want the explosions at least, and I did chuckle at one or two of the jokes here, so maybe I'll find them funny, which would be unusual for me. But really, what I want from this one is heart. If they can give him some heart, that will make all the difference. And as Mindspike on the Christian Geek Central forums observed, Captain Marvel, Shazam, is supposed to have the wisdom of Solomon. Each letter in the word Shazam spells out like some being from mythology or history that he gets a unique gift or ability or power from. And the S is for the wisdom of Solomon. And I saw no evidence of him having the wisdom of Solomon, unless we're talking about Solomon's crazy years, after which he had wisdom with him, as the book of Ecclesiastes tells us, but nevertheless threw himself into giving himself to pleasure and all those kinds of things. So I guess you can make the argument there. I wonder, though, if DC is even keeping that part of the concept for Captain Marvel or Shazam in this movie. I hope they do. I think there's some interesting things they could play with when it comes to wisdom. It'll also be interesting to see what the script writer's idea of wise choices are. What do they say? So this is another example of the third time on this list of something where there's a lot of potential for some interesting things, some good things, or some totally wrong things to be said about some very important issues in life. So for a lot of different reasons, I'm super, super curious, on the edge of my seat, to see what will become of Shazam. Number one! And finally, if you hadn't guessed it already, My number one is Glass. I loved Unbreakable, and I had heard early on that it was originally conceived to be a trilogy that Unbreakable would serve as the origin story for, but that totally just dissolved. I think maybe M. Night Shyamalan did one or two movies after that that didn't do well in the box office, so maybe he didn't have the leverage really to do that kind of movie. I don't know why exactly that plan was not, he didn't continue with that plan to do that trilogy. But thankfully, ever since Bruce Willis shaved his head, he became immortal. So no, he is showing his age a little bit more in the last couple of years, but not much. And so it's cool to see him back for this movie. If you haven't seen the movie Split, that's going to be a vital one for you to see before watching Glass. I didn't even know that Split had anything to do with the Unbreakable continuity until I ran into some article online or some little YouTube thumbnail that he kind of gave as a spoiler, Split and its connection to the Unbreakable, or Split introduces the Unbreakable universe or whatever. And I was like, what the crap? Because this was a movie that, I saw the trailers. I was like, oh yeah, it just looks like a weird psychological thriller about a psychopath with multiple personalities. I don't really need to see that. But when I saw that it was connected to the Unbreakable universe, I was like, what the crap is this? And so I watched that movie long after it was out in theaters, and yeah, definitely he fits well. I will say that there is some meta-natural, I don't want to say supernatural, but there is some meta-human. There is some meta-human goings-on in the movie Split. So if you have avoided that movie because like I did, you thought, oh, just a psychological thriller. No, there are some meta-human things going on in that movie. I don't want to say more than that because it's kind of something that the movie hangs on as a mystery to have you guessing, oh, can this guy really do these weird things or whatever, so that is a bit of a spoiler, but I mean, I would never have checked out that movie if I didn't know that it had some metahuman elements and even more than that had a connection to Unbreakable. So now we're going to see this movie brings all three of these characters together. The Unbreakable, what's his name? David Dunn, I think maybe is the character's name. And then Mr. Glass from the first movie. And then the bad guy from Split, I can't remember. And I think the girl who was the hero from Split is going to be in this. Yeah, she's in the trailer also. And it's going to be interesting to see what kind of story they tell here. I'm hoping that this is a nice 2-hour, 20-minute movie that just gives plenty of time for the slow kind of drama, quiet moments that Split is known for, that Unbreakable is known for, but that also has enough time to really cut loose, because I don't see them doing another movie in this universe after this one. I think this is the end of a quote-unquote trilogy of some kind, and so I want it to have room to go out with a bang, because man, when I was done watching Unbreakable, I was like, this is so cool. It's this grounded, small, intimate introduction to this character, but now I really want to see him be put to his limits. I want to see him get knocked around into cars and stuff like that, and not being hurt, and testing further the limits of his strength, and so I kind of want to have my cake and eat it too, as far as a nice, dramatic, heavy, serious story about metahumans that also has the rock'em sock'em crazy action, that you can only get in superhero movies. And I think there's a lot of potential based on how much I enjoyed Unbreakable, especially for me to really, really enjoy Glass. And the fact that it's named after the character Mr. Glass is very interesting to see what they do with that, because who is Mr. Glass at the end of Unbreakable? Is he a villain really? He's not a hero, but what is he? He's very misunderstood. He's a broken just in terms of his motives, and is a very complex individual. And so whereas the character in Split, much more of a just hardcore whoa villain, even though he's got some good multiple personalities inside of him. And then you've got, how this is going to work out in terms of the who groups with who. There's three of them, and so it's going to be 2 against 1 at one point, or I don't know what. I just, there's so much X factor about what this movie could be that I just cannot wait. So for so many reasons, Glass is number 1 on my list. All right. That's all I've got for San Diego Comic-Con. Didn't talk about any comic books. I've started a new series a couple months ago called Essential Issues, where I go back and talk about the essential, to me anyway, stories of the DC Comics universe and its history, and what they also have to say about the essential issues of life. Because as I commented earlier, comic books are a fertile ground for talking about these essential human issues of life and morality and all these kinds of things. And so if you want to see more comic book oriented content from me, check out my Essential Issues series. I'll be doing another one in September that's going to be focusing on Batman. I've done an introduction to the series already, and then one on Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then also one on Superman's Secret Origins that you can check out. But, you know, as far as Comic-Con and like the comic book news, I'm not reading modern comic books as they come out now, because with the launch of the New 52, DC, which was the company that I'd really been following, just showed me they're going in a direction that does not interest me at all. So really, I'm waiting for just some news out of Comic-Con one of these years that DC is totally changing their entire approach to how they write comics and who they're writing them for. Maybe, I don't know what I want. But anyway, I apologize if you were hoping actually for some comic book content as I talk about Comic-Con. Anyway, that's it. Gotta go. I got stuff to do. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Let's begin.
Burn, ungodly filth.
What do you want to make you ours or to make you despair?
Spirit Blade Productions presents
Do you have any idea how much I will make you suffer? The horrific agony that I will inflict.
Spirit Blade Dark Ritual.
Hell will be a refuge for you when I'm finished.
For more information, visit spiritblade.com.